All right, now both parties have a little bit of soul searching ahead of them. Nick Adams of the Foundation for Liberty and American Greatness, Katie Glueck, senior political correspondent of McClatchy Newspapers. Katie, you know, a lot of this, and Connell touched on it, this notion of how do you keep your voters engaged, because there was passion for Democratic voters. That was there in numbers that we had not seen in, for example, Georgia before, to say nothing of this South Carolina race that was closer than thought. But Republicans were jazzed as well, and that offset their jazz, right? I mean, so that's what decides this, right?
Hey, well, great to be with you. Certainly, I think that Republicans this morning were breathing a sigh of relief, but there are some Republicans who are saying maybe don't breathe that a little too deeply, because a lot of these special elections that have been much closer than expected have also unfolded in districts that many people never initially thought should be competitive. So while Republicans certainly are relieved to have hung on in places like Georgia and that surprise in South Carolina, there are some people who are cautioning, saying, you know, this does not mean that the climate is going to be easier in 2018. At the same time, certainly big disappointment for Democrats who had really, as you noted, spent a lot of money on this race. There was a lot of enthusiasm within the Democratic base in Georgia and around the country about this race.
No doubt.
And they didn't pull it off.
You know, they came close, but, you know, as you smart folks remind me, close is not good enough. But it does send a warning as well, does it not, Nick, to Republicans that voters in each of these states where they've had these special elections, for them now, we believe in what you're doing, we like what you're doing, we just hope that you do it, right? So if around the midterm time, 18 months from now, they haven't done it, then what?
Well, you know,
Neil, Nick first, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, Neil, that's exactly right. You know, it's definitely the case that Karen Handel outperformed President Trump's performance in November, but it's true that the turnout was not there as it was for Tom Price just last November. So there are certainly warning signs for the Republican side, but it's fair to say, I think, that in light of the apoplexy of the left and the progressive media and all the jazz, as you so eloquently put it, surrounding this particular election, we can't really see it as anything other than a resounding and stunning victory and reaffirmation of President Trump.
You know, I look at these sort of things, Katie, and being the money nerd here, I start asking the money guys and gals within the Democratic Party if they had to reassess how they went about this. They poured a lot into this race, and believe me, I can understand why. It looked like it was potentially winnable, and it would have a huge psychological blow if they did pull off a victory here, affect even Republican loyalty. Some wayward senators, congressmen might peel off from the president, so I understand that. But they could have gotten a lot more bang for the buck going to those other vulnerable districts, far more vulnerable than Tom Price's old district, if they had spread the wealth around, right, and prepare for 2018. They didn't do that.
Well, there's still a lot of time for them to do that, though. You know, there are 23 districts held by Republicans that Hillary Clinton won. I know that National Democrats see opportunities in a lot of those districts. So certainly a lot of time still between now and 2018 for them to invest in those districts down the road.
Well, do you look at this as a barometer of things to come, or is this a one and done, or in the case of these special elections, four and done?
Well, you know, we talked about soul searching at the top of this. I mean, no question that Democrats are doing some of that, and they're talking about sort of what is going to be the most effective message.
Actually, they're not. They're talking about the rain and all this nonsense. You know?
Depends on which ones you talk to, you know.
Well, I blame the whole weight thing on a thyroid, so I do it as well. Okay. But Nick Adams, one of the things I wonder about is where you see it going from here. I don't believe there are any more special elections per se. There are going to be 2 gubernatorial races in the fall in New Jersey and in Virginia. Anything can happen there, but I mean, we put a lot of emphasis on these races before 2018. Is there much of a connect?
Well, look, I think there can be. A day is a long time in politics, is the famous saying, and I think these days with social media, an hour is a long time in politics, perhaps even less than that. I think there are definitely lessons that can be learned by both parties. I am very sanguine about the prospects of the Republican Party. I think that there's a real vibe right now in the United States towards President Trump, towards patriotism, towards conservative values, and I think we're going to see that really materialize electorally.
All right, we shall watch it very closely. Nick, final word. Katie, I want to thank you as well.